Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about catalyst team members. And by catalyst, I'm not talking about the people whose life essences I absorb in order to stay youthful. Oh shoot, it's not working anymore. No, I'm talking about people on the team that just seem to make the overall team better just by being on the team. And sometimes it's really hard to identify how they're doing it. I eventually started calling these team members catalysts because they're like chemical catalysts that make reactions go faster or more efficiently or happen more readily at lower temperatures, but don't themselves get used up in it. They just by being there, things go more smoothly. These are people who make teams work better or faster or more efficiently in addition to whatever their own work is. What's interesting is I've mentioned catalyst team members in various videos here and there, but just as an aside, and it occurred to me, I really need to make a video about them because these people exist and are really, really hard to identify. And probably the reason for that is you may be thinking, oh, you're talking about the smartest person on the team. I'm not. I'm not talking about that Mozart of programming who figured out how to do a feature and do it in less memory or make it super fast, or they optimized your frame rate, or they did something amazing. I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about somebody who does their own job very well. Those are just really good people at doing their job. And I'm not talking about the one that everybody likes, the one that's super social, the one that's super witty, the one that everyone on the team's like, we love having him on the team, he's so cool. Catalyst employees sometimes aren't even noticed. It's sometimes the catalyst employee is that quiet person who's doing all these little things in the background that make any project just go more smoothly. Some examples of catalyst employees I've had is it might be that scripter or programmer who improved the UI of a tool that everyone uses. The artists put things into it, level designers use it, system designers use it. They're all using this tool. This person just went in on their own, even though it wasn't part of their job description, and tweaked the tool UI based on how they saw it being used by people to make it better. People could do the things they were doing with far less clicks. Assets were arranged in more logical groupings or near other assets that were commonly used together. No one told him to do this. He just did it. Sometimes a Catalyst employee identifies some critical task that's coming down the pipe that will block a ton of other tasks if it's not done, and they just do it. You may think I'm talking about a producer here, but I'm talking about someone who often rearranged his own schedule to get those blockers out of the way, and occasionally noticed blockers in other people's schedules going, if you did that creature first, I know they're going to use it next week on that map. Or, hey, if you finish that wall variant, that's something that we can actually use next week. I watch these things get done and I'm just like, this is brilliant. Now, frequently, catalysts can be producers. I've watched producers renew licenses before they expired. So there wasn't that weird gap where people were like, well, I was making trees or I was doing this, whatever, and suddenly this license is not expired, so I'm not doing anything for the next few days until it gets renewed. They saw it was going to expire and they renewed it before it did. Sounds simple. Sounds like, why doesn't everybody do this? Everybody doesn't. I've seen producers who were Catalyst employees because they coordinated localization and platform certifications in such a way that not only did the game development not get slowed down, they just reorganized when certain things were done, but also shipping wasn't delayed. Those things were done, and localization, which is translating your game into other languages, can be really difficult, and you have to look out for people who bake words into art. And then you're like, well, now we can't localize that sign that says stop. We can't make it into a sign for other countries. Or just doing things for platform certifications. I've talked about PlayStation and Xbox, but also Windows. They have their things that have to be done to make them shippable on that platform. And this person will just make sure that those things are kind of front-loaded or they're done before it gets sent off for certification, because people on the team can keep working on the game while the certification is done at those other companies. And they just do these things to make sure that stuff is done. Sometimes, though, Catalyst employees are someone who you're not quite sure what it is they do. They're assigned to different various tasks, but you do notice whenever they get put on a team, whether it's a strike team, a small 3 to 5 person strike team working on a feature, or just the team as a whole, that they get moved from one project onto another project. Those teams just seem to function better. And I've watched this happen over and over and over again. And I've started over 4.5 decades getting better at identifying, because I was not always good at identifying these Catalyst employees. Now, I did a video on fungible employees, which is when employers see all their employees as interchangeable, especially employees of a certain type. These are the people who go, well, we need code for that, and here's my stable of programmers, and they think of all of them as exactly the same, even though some of them are graphics programmers and network programmers, and some are really good at optimization, and some are really good at prototyping, and you don't want those two confused. Those are the ones who think I can just assign a programmer to that, and I'm done. No. Catalysts are interesting because they're not only hard to identify, but they're often seen and identified as the fungible employee, because you're not identifying what value they're adding. So you're like, I can replace them. Let me tell you, I've had many, many Catalyst employees on my various teams, and they are absolutely not fungible. They are the least fungible of the people you can possibly get on your team. Sometimes on some of my projects, I recognized the Catalyst employees early, and I quietly supported them. I made sure they got what they needed. I prioritized their tasks. I let them rearrange their schedule because they would do a better job of it than me. However, I will say this too. Sometimes I didn't realize until almost the end of a project that there was a lot of really important development tasks that crossed a certain person's desk at some point. A tool, an in-game feature, a schedule for a group of people on the project. And things got better. And I didn't realize how critical this was until very late in the project. And I've gone to somebody at least once towards the end of a project and said, wow, I was super impressed with stuff you did. I wish I had seen it earlier, but I'm seeing it now, and that's on me. And I will even tell you, the original Fallout had so many catalysts. It was one of the few teams I worked on that had multiple catalysts all over in different positions. And naive, optimistic Tim, because Fallout was the first project I was ever in charge of, I thought every project would be like that. You're always going to have these catalysts, and they're always going to make things better, and everything's going to be improved by them touching stuff. That was not the case. And in addition, I've had situations where I was talking to other game directors, and they had someone on their project who didn't seem to have a clear role or a clear set of tasks. But then when the game director said, I don't know what this person's doing, and they swapped them out, suddenly things started to break down. And I met with them and said, that person is your catalyst. You don't realize what they're doing, but they are doing so many important things on your project. I would recommend that you get them back and just let them go back to what they were doing, because this is not helping when you try to replace someone like that just because you weren't clear exactly what their task lists were. So, what am I saying here? Catalyst team members, look for them on your projects. If you're in charge, even if you're not in charge of the whole project, but let's say you're a lead or senior, look for the Catalyst team members in your area. It may not be obvious. It wasn't obvious to me. I've gotten better at spotting them, but I'm still not perfect. When you find them, protect them, encourage them, support them, because everything will become better by having these people on your project. Anyway, I thought I'd throw a shout out to those Catalyst people out there. Keep on doing what you're doing.